Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle,
the Christian Girl's Guide to Modern Dating.
We're here to help you date with confidence while honoring the Lord and to show you that your identity and contentment are in Christ. We're going to give you the tools that you need to date successfully and be set up well for success in a godly marriage.
If you've ever felt like you didn't really belong with any of the extremes in dating today, well, you're not alone. Neither did we. And that's why we're here looking for the middle.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Looking for the Middle. We're so happy that you have joined us for today. We are rocking and rolling into season 8, and we've got quite the conversation for you today. This was a really fun one to plan.
It was.
And so I think it's going to be a good time and hopefully super helpful for y'all, especially those of you who are in the online dating world at the moment.
Go us.
Yay. So we have got quite the list of tips and questions and tricks and things for you to take into consideration today. But first, Bethany, kick us off with our normal housekeeping list.
Okay, so if you guys don't already, go follow us on social media. Instagram is really the better place to be. At LFTM_podcast is our handle there. Now that the season's back, we're pretty active over on there. We never really plan to, but we always end up taking these like long Instagram breaks when the seasons are off, and it's so nice because then we're like charged up, ready to go for the season. So we'll be back on there more now. Which reminds me, I need to go post for Me Monday today.
Oh,
I'm recording this on a Monday.
For
do you? Okay,
yes.
Send it to me. And then the other thing is our newsletter, which goes out every Thursday. If you want to sign up for that, you can do that at the link in our bio on Instagram or at our website, lookingforthemiddle.com. So those are the main ways of keeping up with us. And then the other thing is we have started a Facebook group for you guys. I
just did a dance. Y'all couldn't see it, but I did.
To be able to kind of, this is so like, I don't know, not one-sided, but like you guys hear from us all the time. You hear what we say. We're not able to
hear from y'all.
Yeah, we hear back from you guys of like what you think, things that are helpful, all of that, and we love that. But then you guys don't really have a way of interacting with each other. So we had a couple requests for a Facebook group, and then we kind of did a survey, and lots of people were in favor of it. So if you want to be in that group, it's going to be probably like a smaller subset of you guys because not everyone's going to want to. But y'all can, build some community, build some friendships and relationships there, and be able to kind of talk and compare experiences and all that. And I mean, we'll be in there too. Like, I don't mean like y'all are on your own. But anyway, we have that. That is on Facebook. So if you want to join that, just send a request and we'll get you added into there. And I think that should cover it.
Okay.
So Kristen has a question of the day.
Yes. So we're going a little different.
Yeah. She was like,
this is
going to be fun.
So I found a question and I thought that it would be fun for us to answer it for each other.
Okay.
Because then we can make fun of each other. And I told Bethany what friendship is, of any value if you can't make fun of each other.
Absolutely. So just to clarify before we start, am I answering this about you or am I answering this as if I was you?
You're answering this about me.
Okay.
It'll make sense when I ask questions.
Okay, gotcha.
So the question is, what job would you be absolutely terrible at? But I need you to answer what job I'd be terrible at.
Okay.
And I'm going to answer what job you would be terrible at.
Kristen would be a terrible park ranger.
Oh, that's a fantastic answer.
Horrible. The bugs.
Oh, that's
the sweating.
Such a good answer.
The outsideness.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd be a horrible park ranger.
Oh, gosh. Wow, you came up with that so quick. I'm so impressed.
Can I come up with some more? I'm sure I can.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
I'm
you want to. You have a
I'm
list.
Joking. No, I don't.
No.
That was just the first thing that popped into my head.
Oh, my gosh. The first thing that popped in my head for you was a librarian because you can't whisper.
That is a true statement. I literally cannot whisper.
When Bethany whispered, I was like, Kristen, did I tell you the other day? But it's like,
it's not a whisper.
It's just a softened version of her voice at the same volume. So it's just like she's talking differently. It's not a different volume. It's just it sounds differently. But she loves books, so that would help. But
I would enjoy it. I would be awful at
it. No one would come. You would be doing like all like online reservations and just pick up and leave. Like no one's going to hang out at the library that you're working at.
No, or we could revolutionize the library. We could start a whole new library where you didn't have to be quiet.
like a bookstore.
Oh yeah, that's they already have those. Never mind.
You'd be great at Barnes and Noble.
A good inventor either.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Oh man, see, wasn't that fun?
That was fun.
We need to do that more.
I was gonna say we should do more of those because that was really fun.
Yeah, because it's hard to like come up with something like serious for yourself, especially after we've been doing it this long. Because for those of you who are new within the past 3 years, we started the question of the day as a way to like, I think it was a listener that had the idea, but like, people wanted to know more about us, which is still funny to us that y'all care that much. We love it. And we're very flattered and humbled, but y'all wanted to know more about like random stuff about us. So like, we'll do a question of the day and we'll answer it about ourselves just to give y'all an idea. And then we feel like y'all know a lot about us by now.
I know. Of course, I'm like, oh my goodness, we've asked this before. We can't ask this like y'all remember.
Yeah, no, I don't even remember all our questions of the day,
so yeah.
honestly. But yeah, we'll do this more where we answer for each other. I think that'll be fun.
I liked that. That was really funny. Okay,
good. All right, so the way this is, I'm going to explain how this works and then, or how we've organized it, and then we're just going to run with it. We didn't even color coordinate this one, so it's going to be fun. Going wild here. Yeah.
Y'all.
So basically, we came up with, it was originally 10 questions, and we just realized we didn't need one of them. So literally 30 seconds before the audio you're hearing right now is a piece of audio that got cut saying, oh crap, we don't need that one anymore. But it's 9 questions that are commonly asked on dating sites, dating apps, whatever. And we're going to talk about these questions in a couple different ways. We're going to talk about different ways you can ask them because they're pretty generic, boring, overused. Overused questions. So we're going to give you an alternative way to ask it that makes you more interesting, sets you apart. Because let's be honest, we're all trying to figure out a way to like set ourselves apart in the dating world, particularly in online dating when you just have option after option. But then we're also going to talk about if you get asked these questions, how can you answer them in a way that's engaging, it's interesting, it keeps the conversation moving, or doesn't if you don't want to, or something like that. And then Bethany's going to give us a sample answer, because if y'all didn't know, Bethany has a note in her phone. This is genius. If you don't do this, this is free. You're welcome. Bethany has a list of like these common questions in her phone and her answers to them, so that when she is talking to a guy and he asks her, hey, are you close with your family? Here we go. Oh, yep. Point C. Here's my answer. Copy paste. And she's not having to reformulate the same answer over and over again.
No, but I will say, so that's when I'm like, it's funny. I'm like really intrigued by a guy when he asks questions in such a way that I can't like copy and paste my answers. I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you actually have to,
actually type things
everything.
Up.
Yes. But that's brilliant. And so if you find yourself, you're like, gosh, I feel like I just keep answering the same questions over and over. Maybe it's time to create a Bethany note in your phone and write out your answers. And then you can just go ding, ding, copy, paste.
Saves a lot of time.
And there you go. So that's kind of how we're going to organize this episode. So let's just start out. Question 1, Bethany, is what do you like to do for fun?
Which this is not a horrible question.
No.
Let me just say. And also, as we're going through this list, I'm sure most of you guys have asked these questions.
Oh, I
have asked these questions. I have been asked these questions. And once you've been in the dating pool as long as I have, you start to go, okay, how can we do this better? Because a lot of these...
How can we turn this from a library to a bookstore?
Like, exactly. We're going to keep that. Library.
You're welcome.
This is a library. We need to make it a bookstore.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Yes. But basically, a lot of these alternatives are a way to get the same information, but also keep the conversation moving. Because as you know, we talk about so much, you don't want this to feel like an interview. You don't want it to be like question, answer, question, answer. You want to string together things to where you can answer it in such a way that it keeps the conversation going without having to be like, how about you? And next, which I think we're going to talk about how about you on here somewhere, right?
Yes.
Is that one of our ones?
Well, you're going to insert that in like
we're going to talk about it later.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Table that.
So what do you like to do for fun? That's our question right now.
Yes.
So here's how I would say ask this differently. This is what I use is I ask someone, hey, what kind of things do you like to do for fun? But then I like explain that a little. I say, so like if for instance you had a Saturday free with like absolutely no plans, what would your perfect day look like? Like, that's the question. I kind of, narrow it down for them, because like, if you ask someone, what do you like to do for fun? Well, what do they say? Oh, I like to hang out with my friends.
Yeah. Well, duh.
And go to movies. I'm like, yeah, so does 200 million other people in the country. Like, we all like those things, but you asked a question that was like, it's so broad. And too, like, I like to hang out with Kristen and do some things, but then if it's me and Lindsay, we do other stuff. If I'm hanging out with my dad, it's completely different, but they're all fun. So I think if you give it a little more structure, you make it easier to really answer the question.
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of a overarching theme on all of these questions, is the more specific you can make them, the easier it's going to be for them to answer, and most likely the easier it's going to be for you to continue the conversation, because we obviously don't encourage you to talk to someone in a dating context like you would in a job interview. But if you think about when you're in a job interview and somebody asks you a specific question, it's so much easier for you to recall experiences and tell stories when it's a specific question, where if it's like, oh, tell me a little about yourself. Like, everybody hates that question in a job interview, because you're like, what do you want to know? Like, whereas they say, hey, like, are you from Georgia? Like, have you lived? And I was like, oh yeah, born and raised here. I grew up in this town. I lived in this area for a little bit. Like, it's so much easier if you just narrow it down.
Yeah, whereas if they're like, tell us a little about yourself, you're like, well, I'm Kristen, and I'm here.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd be a horrible park ranger. Like, what do you want to know?
Here I am at the park ranger's office for a job interview.
Yeah.
So yeah, just give it a little structure. Yeah, I think that's a big thing with that one.
Yeah. I think on the flip side, then, if you're asked this question, you keep the same advice in mind.
Yes.
So make your answer specific enough to give him something to build on. So you don't just say like, oh, I like to hang out with my friends. That gives him nothing to elaborate on other than being creepy about asking about your friends, which you don't want him to do.
Right.
Whereas if you say like, oh, I really enjoy like going to a park and reading. Okay, what book are you reading right now?
Exactly.
Okay, and it's way easier than to be like something super generic. So if he's going to ask the generic question, give him a specific answer and see if that helps. Because this isn't one of those things where it's got to be necessarily specific on both sides initially. So if you can initiate the specificity on one side or the other, it's going to help a lot.
Yeah.
And tell him I'll butcher it if I try to go into this, but the chain link thing, like give that analogy, because that was cool.
This is just like in general of like, when you're having these conversations online, like girls talk all the time about, he doesn't ask me any questions or he doesn't keep the conversation going. But I'm also finding, just for the record, in my conversations with guys, that is one of their chief complaints about girls too.
Okay, yes. I've picked up on this too when we've had conversations.
There's a disconnect there, obviously. And I think what it is because this is how you fall into that interview vibe. Like, question, answer. So we're talking about, when we were planning, I was like, it's got to be kind of like a chain, to where someone asks a question and that's like the first link in the chain, but then your answer like links onto that. But your answer is such that it gives something for them to then link on to the other side of. And you keep stringing these links together until you have this chain of a conversation that is not question, answer, all these little 2-link chains on their own that don't connect. That's when it starts to feel like, oh, well, they're not keeping the conversation going. When in reality, you're not really having a conversation. It's like you ask a question and I answer and say, what about you? So then you answer. So then I ask a question and you answer and say, what about you? And back and forth we go. That's not a conversation. And so those are the best, like, people are always like, oh, well, he doesn't ask questions or he doesn't whatever. And so I don't know. I have kind of evolved in this, because I used to be like, yeah, I was there. But now I'm kind of more like, okay, well, if you feel like you're having to ask questions and answer them and it's the only way to get to know this person, like maybe y'all are not asking and answering the questions as well as you could to just create a conversation. Because most of the time when I talk to guys online, I'm not looking for questions. I just move on from that if they won't plug into a little more. But I've found if I alter how I'm answering just a little, it turns into this conversation that is just a normal conversation.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I approach. And that applies to not just this one question of what do you like to do for fun, but all of it in general.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's just a good mental picture to keep in mind through all of this. So do you have like a sample?
Well, I do. And I don't have like, hey, this is exactly what I say, but I do have an example to kind of get your mind rolling of if someone says, what do you like to do for fun? And you're going to answer with a few things about yourself. One, make them unique. Doesn't have to be like you're the only person ever, but like, don't say those super generic things like we talked about, but also like to this specific one of what do you like to do for fun? Vary your answer. I was telling Kristen when we were starting, I was like, yeah, so if you like cooking, don't say, oh, well, I like to cook and I like to bake and I like to wash the dishes, like,
yeah,
great. Like those are 3 things about yourself. But if he's not into cooking, doesn't really give him much to go on. But if instead you say, oh, well, I really like to bake. I love riding my mountain bike on the weekends and I have a podcast or whatever. Those are 3 very different things. So 1, give him a fuller picture of who you are. But 2, well, now he may not like baking, but he might like cookies. He may not like riding a mountain bike, but he might like hiking. And there's something to talk about. He may not have a podcast. He probably doesn't. But like, he may like listening to them. Like, so there's so much more for him to say, oh, wow, I've always wanted to start a podcast. Tell me more about that. Or, oh my goodness, I love my mountain bike too. What's your favorite trail? Like,
yeah,
things like that. Like, that's a much better answer to a question of what do you like to do for fun. Keep it specific, but also varied.
Yes.
Would be mine to that one.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. All right. So next question, commonly asked question is what is your favorite blank?
Yeah.
Food, movie, dessert, sports team,
whatever,
sport, whatever. I hate favorite questions. Can I just go on the record?
I do too. I'm
too indecisive. Like I can't.
Yeah. Well, and I always forget about things. I'm like, oh yeah, and then I feel like I'm being dishonest.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, wait, I thought your favorite color was orange. Oh, I forgot about purple. I'm sorry.
Yes. No, I don't like favorite questions because I'm like, but there's so much more to me than this one.
Yeah.
Or like my favorite movie. Okay, so I will say, if I had to pick an absolute favorite movie, it's Princess Bride. But if you know me, you know that is very not indicative of my typical movie taste.
Not at all.
It's very much an outlier.
When we watched it, I was shocked that this was her. Like, I'm not shocked that she liked it, but I'm like, of all the movies you watch, this is not in the mainstream of your taste.
It's not. It's very nostalgic to me, but that's like my all-time favorite movie. But if I just answer that to someone, that does not give a very like accurate description of my movie taste.
No.
Because next they're going to want me to watch Monty Python or something. And I'm like, no, not happening. Anyway. So a different way to ask that, if you're going to be asking someone those things about themselves, is, hey, tell me your top 3 blank. Or one I just thought of off the top of my head that I like to do with guys, and it always is well received, is instead of just saying, what's your favorite blank, I send a list of probably 5 or 6 things. It's like, okay, salsa or queso,
ooh, one of the other,
summer or winter, those kinds of things, like this or that.
Beach or mountains.
So send a group of those where they just literally pick between one or the other. That has always gone really well too.
Ooh, yeah,
so that's another fun alternative to that. And it can be like random stuff too, like you can get creative with it. I mean, Google this or that lists on Google them. There's tons of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that's how I would change it up and ask it, I think. But I don't know if you're asked that. How would you answer?
I never give one answer.
Okay.
I'm always like, I cannot pick, so here are my top 3.
Yeah.
The only thing I think I have an absolute favorite of is my favorite movie.
Okay.
Too. But like people are like, oh, what's your favorite?
Wait, which is it? How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days? Mm-hmm. I can never remember if it's that or Sweet Home Alabama.
It's that one. Yeah, that one's up there.
Okay.
Well, now that I'm sitting here thinking, I do feel like I have some favorites. Crap. Like my favorite music artist,
Taylor Swift.
Okay. Favorite song,
I don't know your favorite
Beautiful
song.
Soul by Jesse McCartney.
I did not know that was your favorite. No.
Oh my gosh. Literally since I was in the
sitting
8th
here
grade.
going through Taylor Swift songs.
No.
Interesting.
Since I was in the 8th grade.
Oh, that's funny.
Or maybe 7th grade, actually.
Okay.
Long time ago.
I did not know that. See, favorite song, I couldn't even
Yeah, no.
begin to... Not because I have so many. Like, I don't have a favorite.
Yeah, but like, favorite TV show. Well, God, now I feel like I do have favorites. Okay, well, here's the deal. Even if you do have favorites, give them a few.
Yes.
Because if you name all your favorites, like, wow, I don't like any of this, then, like, again, you can give some varied stuff. Like, I love Friends, but I also like The Office, and which I'm like, I don't think I've met anybody in our, like, generation who doesn't like The Office.
I met one person.
Okay.
And I pray for them every night.
Yeah. Who is it? Do I
Nobody
know
you
them?
know.
Oh, okay. But, like, name a few.
Yeah.
Just in hopes of, like,
Something
connecting.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, because even with that, like, if someone told me, oh yeah, I like Friends, I'd be like, oh cool, okay,
yeah,
I do too. The end. But if someone was like, oh, I like The Office, I'd be like, oh, tell me about your favorite episode.
Yes.
Like, what's your, like,
yeah,
that gives me something that I am interested
Is
in.
it okay if I work That's What She Said jokes in the conversation from here on out? You know, like stuff like that. But yeah, give a few answers and because you want, again, something for them to take hold of and kind of applying the specific but varied response. If you're going to give your favorite movie, I don't have a very eclectic movie taste. I like chick flicks and sports movies, but I would tell them at least one of each. So he's like, oh my gosh, this girl literally only watches rom-coms. No, I like, you know, Miracle and Hoosiers and, you know, Remember the Titans and whatever else. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's something I can like vibe with.
Well, and I try to like talking about the movie one because that's what everyone always asks. What's your favorite movie?
Yeah.
And so mine's like Princess Bride. But then when I answer the question, I'm like, but my top ones are, oh goodness, my top ones are You've Got Mail, Pride and Prejudice. I mean, we're going down the rom-com, not really com. Anyway, Pride and Prejudice. But like Endgame is one of my all-time favorites. Singing in the Rain is an all-time favorite. So we've got action, we've got British, we've got, you know, romance, and then we've got like a classic kind of thing. So that starts to build a full picture of your answer.
Yeah. Let's also talk about the example that you gave when we were planning because I laughed way too hard about this. So the point we wanted to make here is don't just answer the question.
Right.
Right.
This is not super open-ended, even though it kind of is.
Yeah. Like,
but
like one of my favorite foods is pizza. But like Italian food is my favorite grouping. So I would say like pizza is probably my favorite food, but like I love all Italian food. I go to Olive Garden every year for my birthday. Like something, you know, but don't just say like pizza.
Right.
Because I asked Bethany, I was like, so if I asked you like, is your favorite food? Like, first of all, I thought it was Oreos, which she had forgotten about. And it's not.
That's why favorites are bad.
Yeah, but then
so my favorite food, I was like, well, my favorite food is potatoes because like you can make fries out of them. A good baked potato is hard to top. Like they're so versatile. Which I know y'all didn't realize you were coming here talking about the versatility of potatoes, but that's my favorite food. But if someone said, what's your favorite food? And I just said potatoes and left it at that would be a little awkward. Kristen's dying over here.
I'm sorry. I was really like, wow, podcasting with Bethany and Kristen. Let's talk about the versatility of potatoes. Oh, man. But I told her, I'm like, when you are talking to a guy next time on a dating app and he asks you your favorite food, I need you to just say potatoes and that's it. And screenshot it and send it to me because I really want to read that conversation. Because that's just so off the wall. Like, I just love it so much.
But once you explain it, you're like,
it makes total sense.
Okay.
Like, fries and a baked potato. Like,
hash browns.
Oh, gosh.
Like,
it's a lot of different.
There's just a
lot of
you
different
can
options.
do with them.
Scalloped potatoes.
There's a lot you can do with them, even just within the fry category.
That's true. You can have waffle fries. You can have shoestring fries. Right? You can have steak fries. You can have curly fries. Wow, now I'm hungry.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, don't just answer. Don't just say potatoes.
Somewhere between potatoes and also on the other extreme, talking about the versatility of potatoes just within the fry category. Don't go that route either. Keep it in the middle.
Somewhere in the
it's
middle.
like in Hitch, you know, where he's dancing.
Yeah.
He's like back and forth. He's like, you stay right here. This is where you live.
Yeah.
It's like, this is it. Like, that's what you want.
They don't need no pizza. They got food there. I don't need none of this.
Yes. That's what you want to go with.
I told Kevin I really want us to learn Kevin James. It's Kevin James. Is that his name? His dance, and then play that song at the wedding, and us
Please
just start
do.
going.
Please do.
Q-tip.
Throw it away. That's another really good movie.
Yes. If you've never seen Hitch, please go watch it.
Yes.
Oh my word. If you are in the dating scene,
good.
that is a must see. And if you have, then you can appreciate this comedy section of this episode that was totally not planned.
Oh my. Okay.
All right. Next question.
I feel like I've given my sample answer somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere
you
in
get
there.
the idea
Potatoes.
on this one.
That's her sample answer is potatoes. All right. Next question.
Okay. And this one's going to be more specific to Christian dating, obviously.
Obviously. So next question is, where do you go to church?
Yes.
So an alternative way to ask.
Right.
You said you like to say, what kind of church do you go to?
I do.
And why is that?
Because this question is going to be something that comes up more early on to try to start establishing, okay, where is this person in their walk with the Lord? And if you say, where do you go to church? And they answer, you know, I go to such and such on the corner of this and that. Like, okay, great. I know nothing more about your walk with the Lord than I did before.
Yeah. Do I need to Google this? Like,
yeah, you got to remember too, like, and this is from guys. This is not just us saying it. Like, they do better with those more open-ended questions, because if you ask them a question that just needs an answer, you're going to get potatoes. Right? Like, that's how.
I feel like we're establishing a lot of
aren't we though?
Like statements and jokes that are going to carry through, like potatoes and the library, the bookstore, and stuff like that. This is going to be a foundational episode in the history of this podcast.
I agree with you. We're going to need to refer people back to this one. Mark it down.
Yes.
Because in 3 months we're going to be like, what
episode was it again?
Where did that happen?
Yeah.
Anyway, so where do you go to church? While it is not technically a yes or no question, it's not very open-ended. So I ask, what kind of church do you go to? Because if nothing else, they will probably give you the denomination, which at least gives you a foundation of where they're coming from and how close it matches up to you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
At the very least. They'll either say, oh, it's a Baptist church. But most of the time I'll be like, oh, I go to such and such a Baptist church, and it's kind of big, or it's kind of small, or it's contemporary or traditional, or, you know, this is really important to me, or I like that about it. Like, it starts that. Or you can say, oh, cool, what do you like about your church? Where are you involved? Like, what do you do there? So yeah, I always ask, what kind of church do you go to? And that has served me well. Like, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, it gives you more to grab hold of in the conversation. And tell them about what you said about the basketball analogy, because I liked that too.
Okay, yes. So So I guess if you're asked this question and you're answer it as if you were actually asked the better question. You know what I'm saying? If someone says, oh, where do you go to church? Answer it as if they said, oh, what kind of church do you go to? Tell me about it. Like, answer that question, even though that's not what they asked. And the reason the basketball analogy is, like, if you've played sports and, you know, you go into a game, it doesn't have to just be basketball, but we played basketball. You go into a game and you're playing this team that's awful, right? You know they're awful. You know you're way better. You know you're going to beat them. And then you get to halftime and you look at the scoreboard and you're like, we're up by 4 points and we have 28 turnovers. What happened? You know, you're playing. I can think of many halftime pep talk from the coach saying, guys, you are playing down to the level of your opposition. Play your game. Do your thing. Don't worry about them, and we'll be fine. And yeah, you go out and play the second half, and you beat them by 30. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the same concept of, just because you're asked a question that's not really the best, you don't have to play down to that level. Answer the question as if it was asked better, and pull them up, bring them along, to being better at it. Yeah. And because sometimes guys are just annoying and they don't ask questions and they're not really all that interested, because they're not all that interested. They're just talking to you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sometimes they're new to online dating. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, I've been doing online dating off and on for years. We have a podcast about this. Obviously, we have thought through some of these things. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of an advantage there that now you guys have too from listening to it, just because we talk about it a lot. They probably don't have that. They're not sitting there going, what is a better way to ask this? Because one, they're guys and they don't overthink things the way we do. It's not a slight on them. It's just the fact of the matter. So he's like, I want to know where she goes to church. Where do you go to church?
Yeah.
There's not a lot more to it. There's not a lot behind it. So answer what you hoped would have been asked and kind of bring them up. Don't play down to the level of your...
Yeah.
I say play down to the level of your opponent. They're not your opponent.
Yeah, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so you basically, practically that looks like, don't just say, I go to First Baptist hometown, whatever.
Yeah.
Insert hometown here. It's, I go, even if you say that, you can be like, yeah, it's like a smaller church. I've been going there for the last 5 years, since I've been in this area, and I'm in a small group there. I really love it. It's a little more traditional, and they blah, 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 something. Or I go to this church and it's non-denominational. It's, it's a bigger church, but it's, it's a little more contemporary, Give them a little bit of a glimpse into what it's like. And basically, tell them what they would initially be able to figure out if they went and Googled it. Because then you're just saving them a trip. Because if you're not telling me that as a girl, and you just say, I go so-and-so. Okay, well, immediately I'm like, okay, let me just go Google this church and figure out, is this something that, I align with belief-wise? Is this a church I, would consider going to? Not that you're just assuming it's going to work. But girls' brains go there.
You go there.
You go there.
Because if you look and you're like, I would never... Not even if it's like, okay, I couldn't go to this church. It's like this whole type, this vibe of church. It's not what I want. It's not where I would, how to tailor your questions then one. But also two, okay, if this is a deal, no need to drag this on.
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If they have snakes on the front page, then
then it's going to be very different from my Reformed Baptist, whatever. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But no, I think, going to my sample answer, I think what you said is exactly how I would answer it, of it's this type of church, it's Baptist church. It's kind of small, it's not that big. I tell them, I'm super involved there because I work there. So, and I just kind of elaborate a little and go from there. And, instead of, I just ask them then, so tell me what you do at your church or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Question number 4. This one is a little tricky because, let me just read the question, then you'll understand why it's tricky. So question number 4, are you close to your family? We all know that there is, 1, no perfect family, but 2, even if you're close to your family, you want to, this could go a million different ways. Let's just put it that way. And getting an answer for this question. So when you go to ask that, you can ask about somebody's family and give them the freedom to share as much or as little as they want to. So when we were coming up with alternative way to ask, Bethany normally goes so tell me about your family, ...
Right.
Do they live nearby? Do you have siblings? I typically went in a generally similar direction, and I just asked, do you live near your family? And does your family live nearby? Because then it gives them we live 15 minutes away, so I see them a lot. We're really close. Or no, my family lives back in Denver where I'm from, but we still talk a good bit. Or no, not really. I'm not super tight with my family. And then you can kind of get the vibe of it was a more surface level question, but they can give you as much or as little information to accompany that answer as they want to and as they feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
So that you can begin to gather some initial data on their family.
Guides, this is kind of like a almost like preliminary question to kind of guide future questions. One thing I will say, remember though, is a lot of people will have information about their family in their profile. Okay, not on Hinge or Bumble, the super short ones necessarily, but I'm thinking of eHarmony in particular. I know they have one prompt that's if you need advice, who's the first person you call? They have another one that's who's the most influential person in your life? Those are some prompts that get answered. And a lot of people will put information, if I need advice, I'm calling my dad. Or if my mom's the most influential person in my life. So a lot of people have that there. So you can say, oh, they probably are close to their family. So you can play off of that. Now, I'm not saying if they didn't answer their parents to one of those that they're not close to them, but like you can kind of tell, oh, they probably are close to their family, and kind of play off of that and say, oh, I saw that your mom was your most influential person. Are y'all really close? Does she live nearby? Like open it up that way. So yeah, just I don't know if they have in their profile, oh, who do I call for advice? And they say, oh, well, it was my dad, but he passed away 2 years ago. Don't ask. Like,
yeah, read the room.
Know that before you actually ask a question that might make it potentially really awkward.
Yeah. Also look and see if any of their pictures are with their family, because I know some people will do that. And before, like, some apps now have like restrictions on you posting pictures with other people in them, which I get the premise, but it's like I don't have a lot of pictures that aren't selfies of just me.
Exactly. Most of mine on there are selfies, because I'm like,
I don't have any posed pictures of me by myself.
There by myself.
Yeah. So I think like I used to do that on purpose before I would put a picture up with my family. Yeah. To communicate that like, hey, I'm close with my family, and they would come up in like prompts and stuff too if it was like a longer, like an eHarmony type thing. But, and it gives like, if a guy does this and you're trying to ask about his family, it gives you something again to grab hold of in the conversation of if he mentioned like, oh yeah, like me and my brother have breakfast every Saturday morning at Waffle House. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. Like,
I want to go to Waffle House.
Oh, we went the other day. It was so good. And I was not really in the mood for it. And then we got there and I was like, oh, I'm so glad we did this.
Sounds really good.
Yeah. Don't go to the one in Hickory Flat, because it has a 75 health score and we didn't notice until we'd already eaten.
Oh, man. I don't go to that one very often. So what about the one up in Macedonia at the other end?
Oh, I never think about that one.
I always figure about that one too. I'll maybe go to that one.
Yeah, go to that one.
I might do breakfast for dinner to go from Waffle House tonight.
That's a good idea.
That sounds so good. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
Reining it in.
Yes. But if he goes to Waffle House with his brother every other Saturday morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a fun thing you do with your brother. Have y'all always been close? How long have you had that tradition? Whatever. And then you get, it's more of, again, the specific questions. They're easier to answer. Mm-hmm. They give you more information, and it helps the conversation keep moving.
Yeah.
So
then on the flip side, if you are asked this question, you kind of got two options. If you are close to your family, great. Elaborate on that. Don't just say, oh yeah, we're pretty close. Elaborate on, oh yeah, I'm just like my dad, or I'm just like my mom. I have 2 sisters. I have a brother. I have whatever. Like, I'm the oldest. I'm the youngest. Like, give some of that context of, we've always lived pretty close to each other. We hang out. I'm always like, yeah, we love to, because my family, we love to play games, like board games, card games, whatever. We get pretty competitive around, you've been there.
Yeah.
We get a little competitive.
I love a good white family.
Yeah. And so
night.
that's something that's fun about us that we like to do, to kind of give them a picture. I know this is, again, we're girls. This is way off down the road, but kind of build a little bit of a picture of like, hey, this is what you would be coming into.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
if you're coming into this family, like, this is what it is. Now, I will say this: if you are not close to your family, I think you can, if this is early on, like if this is a really early question, if you're not close to your family and you don't really want to like, I don't know, go into all the details, you can say something like, no, we're not really that close. It's kind of a long story. I won't bore you with the details right now. We can talk about it later. Or you can give some information. You don't want to be like too vague to their like, oh my word, is she a serial killer and she like murdered all her family? Like, you don't want it to be that vague, because that's obviously their first assumption would be.
Remind me to tell you something about serial killers in a second. Sorry.
Okay, make note of it.
Yes.
But even if you're comfortable talking about your family situation, maybe, and kind of telling why you're not all that close, if this is super early on, you do not want to like word vomit or all over him about all the drama with your family. Cliff's Notes version is fine, because remember, he doesn't know you super well yet, and he doesn't know all of the ins and outs of everything that went into this family dynamic, and allowing him to kind of get to know you more, gather more context before you are like getting into the nitty gritty of all this stuff is probably good. So kind of find, you're looking for the middle on this one.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about serial killers.
Okay, real quick. So the thing about Pam, the podcast.
Yes.
They're doing a 6-part documentary.
Matt was telling me that the other day.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I
actually just started listening to the thing about Olga and, what's her name? The thing about and Olga.
Is it still Dateline?
Yes.
Oh,
Keith Olbermann or whatever his name is. He's my favorite. Hold on, I'm pulling it up here.
What is his last name?
Keith Olbermann. That's a baseball commentator.
Yeah, Keith.
Ignore me.
Helen
and Olga.
Helen and Olga. I have not heard of this.
They're old ladies, and they like
kill people.
They like take in these like homeless guys. And they like provide for them. Helen's rich. She's the money. Olga's the muscle. And I'm saying these ladies are in like their 60s or 70s. And
my
I'm
jaw's
on the
on the
first
floor.
episode.
I've been wanting something in true.
Yeah.
The thing about Helen and Olga.
It's Dateline. And what is the guy's name?
Keith Morrison.
Okay.
Sorry to say, because it's Kristen Bell's celebrity crush.
Yes.
She was on Ellen.
Yeah.
I was like, that is
that
amazing.
guy? Oh my word.
She's like the Dateline guy. Like, what? She's like his voice.
It's good.
It's a great voice.
I listened to half
He's
of
like
it just
80.
for him.
But,
oh yeah, it's good.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, now I know what I'm listening
I've
to on the way
had it in my
home.
queue for forever, and then we were talking about the other night. Matt said something about this one, and I was like, oh, I need to go back because he was telling me about the TV show, everything about Pam, and then he was like, oh yeah, the thing about Helen and Olga, and I was like, oh, I need to go back and listen to it. So I started.
I've been back
today.
on a podcast kick.
Me too.
Instead of music.
I was gonna say I just finished a book, and I'm like, I could not
halfway
get
through
into
a
my
book
next
and
one,
I can't get into
and so
it.
I'm like, I just need something a little quicker, a little more murdery, I guess. I don't know.
That's always a good idea. Helpful.
I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, yeah, we have a podcast about like dating and relationships because we just couldn't cut it as like true crime podcasters as much as we wish we could.
If I could just sit behind my computer and do it all, but if I had to go like look for somebody who's killed someone, please see Park Ranger conversation at the beginning of the episode.
Yes.
And that's all you need to know.
Oh my word. Okay.
All right.
So we are getting off track. Okay. So I kind of already said how I would answer this, talking about my family. So we don't have to go through that. So let's move on to the next one, which is, where do you work?
Where do you work? Does this seem kind of a creepy question?
If it's super early, it does. Because I'm like, why do you want to know?
Yeah. Are you going to show up?
Right.
If I say I work from home, do I need to walk my doors? Like, what?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I most of the time there's probably nothing meant by it.
Yeah.
But if it's super early, it does come across a little odd. So I don't know. How would you say do it differently?
I mean, I think the nice thing is I have yet to see a dating app that doesn't give you the opportunity to put what you do. And that's normally at the very top. So if you have guys who aren't really reading anything else, they should at least be able to see.
Because it's normally like,
it's like your age, your job, and your name and your city. Like those are the four things that are at the top. So if you want to, look at that and see what they put and then tailor your question. So like if they're a lawyer, you don't need to say, what do you do for work? Because you know what lawyers do. So you can say like, oh, what kind of law do you practice? How long have you been in that field?
What's your favorite part about it?
Yeah. Did you always want to be a lawyer growing up? Like something like that. Or if they say something really vague, like, oh, I'm a consultant. Okay, well, what do you consult on? Like, what do you do? What does that even mean? Like, can you give me a definition? I would put that I was a writer, so I got a lot of questions about my job. That's where the ghostwriting story.
Yes.
Can I tell this story again? Because it's been a while. This is one of my favorite stories, y'all. So
it is funny.
This was 2 or 3 years ago? It's been a while.
It's been a while at this point.
So I guess it can't be 3 because I haven't been doing this for 3 years. It's been 2.5. So probably 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years ago. I put that my job was a ghostwriter. Which is what I do. For those of you who don't know, that means I just write for other people and don't get credit for it. Is the generic way to put that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty well-known concept of what a ghostwriter is. I have learned since having this job, it's not. Especially in the field that I'm in. Like in the general area that I write under. But I had a guy message me and ask like how I got into ghostwriting and if I liked writing stories about ghosts.
If you liked, how did you get into writing about like supernatural stuff?
Yeah, and then like, do you like writing stories about ghosts? And I'm like, oh, buddy, you don't know what this is. And like,
there's just no coming back.
I literally didn't respond because I'm like, if I go along with it, because Lauren was like, oh, you got to just play into it, and I'm like, no, that's awful.
I can't.
But then if I correct him, then I sound awful too. I'm like, there is no winning. So I'm like, and I wasn't interested anyway. So it wasn't like, oh, you're literally perfect and you don't know what my job is. It was just like, no, thank you. So maybe try to be kind of specific with your job if you have a weird one that you put in your profile. But if he has a generic job, ask questions about, what do you consult on? What do you do? Like, what, how do you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Like, are you looking to stay in this career long term? Ask more pointed questions and maybe stay away from the actual, like, oh, where do you work?
Yeah.
What location are you at? What's your schedule? Like,
yes. And then, if you're asked it, same thing. Be smart about your answer. If someone asks you, where do you work? Don't tell them, well, I work at, what did I tell you? I work at the Ann Taylor Loft, at such and such and such and such. And, here's my schedule and here's where.
I'm free. I have an hour lunch break on Tuesday if you want to stop by.
Don't tell them that. Be smart about your answer. 95, 98, 99% of the time, they don't mean anything by it. But that doesn't mean you don't
still be cautious.
Yeah, be a little cautious about it. But when you're answering it, tell them what you enjoy about your job. Again, this is not a where do you work? Costco. The end. Like
potatoes.
Yeah, this is not a potatoes place. Tell them what you enjoy about it, how you got into it, favorite part, least favorite part, like things like that. Again, just giving someone a full picture, but also something they can grab onto. I mean, when people ask me this, my answer is usually like, oh, I'm on staff at my church. I'm kind of all over the place. I do this, I do that. I have this whole list of things. This is one that is copied into my note, by the way.
Yep.
I tell them, oh, I'm kind of all over the place. I have I go through this whole list of stuff that I do. And so then it's not just where do you work, it's what do you do kind of as well. So that's kind of how I go with it. Yeah, I think that's smart.
Well, that's the information you want to know anyways. Even if you're asking where do you work, like, I don't really care if you're an accountant, what firm you're at. I want to know, do you like accounting? Are you good at it?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to be an accountant forever? Like, what? I don't know.
Yeah.
An accountant probably wasn't the best example, but like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
All right, moving on. Oh dear.
This is my favorite and also least favorite at the same time.
Gosh. All right.
Probably there's so much here to talk about, but this is the worst.
Oh my word. This is probably the most common question of all the ones on this list.
Yes.
Would you not agree?
100%.
So question number 6. What are you up to? Blech. Cue the vomit noise.
Yes,
we need a soundboard.
No.
Something like
most of the time you're going to get this one when it's like you've been talking for a day or two and they're trying to like start up the conversation for the day, whether it's on an app, whether it's via text. You get the, hey, what are you up to? Okay, fine. If you want to ask it one time, I'll give you a pass. Fine. But a much better way of approaching this, hey, we're going to start a new conversation today, I still want to keep talking to you, is, hey, hope you're having a great day. I'm about to head to lunch and I'm thinking, Waffle House sounds good or something. Like, so basically, hey, hope you're having a great day. Insert something about your own day.
Yeah.
Is much better than, hey, what are you up to?
What are you up to?
I want to be like, I'm at work. Like,
especially
everyone else on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock. I started to say,
especially if it's if it's between the hours of 8 and 5.
Yeah.
Assume they're at work. Like, and assume they're probably, unless, like starting out, you're probably not going to get a response right off the bat because they're at work. So like, just maybe use your noggin and think through that.
And so sorry, this one we're gonna get a little snarky because I hate that.
It seems like a cop out. It's like, I want to talk to you, but I don't want to put a lot of effort into it, and this is an easy question.
Yes.
So what are you doing?
Because it requires no effort on your part. It's entirely on the person that is being asked.
No.
But another thing you can do too is the tried and true. Oh, hey, I saw blank and I thought of you, or I thought of our conversation, or I thought of whatever, because you're kind of wanting to sow these seeds that, hey, you're on my mind.
Yeah.
Like that's a great way of doing that too.
Yeah.
Because
I feel like if you do that, it communicates, hey, you're on my mind and I want to talk to you.
Exactly.
If you just say, what are you up to? It's like, are you bored? Are you sending this to the 4 other girls that are in your inbox just to see who responds and who you can talk to right now? It communicates very different. Well, if you're a guy listening, welcome to the female brain of how we deconstruct this. But like, you're sending nonverbal cues that are completely different with how you ask this question.
Yep.
So keep that in mind.
100%. Okay, so now if you do get asked this question.
Yes, Bethany has stories for this. I'm so excited.
I do. Like, I went out with a guy on a first date twice. I think I've told this story before. But I went out.
First date Tommy. Can we call him that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
First date Tommy.
First date Tommy and I, we went out. Why he's not just one first date Tommy, I'm not totally sure. But that is on me. I have learned from it. I have moved on, and it is fine. But after Tommy's one first date, he texted me. And even before, like leading up to it, he would text me in the morning, hey, what are you up to? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Get ready for work. I'm at work. Whatever. So we text for a while in the morning. But then at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, hey, what are you up to?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, dude, still working.
Yeah.
And so maybe we would text for a little
I have
there,
a career.
Or we'd be at work. He did too. Like, he was at work. But then, later on, hey, what are you up? Like, I'm not even joking. 3 or 4 times a day, he would ask me, hey, what are you up to? And I'm like, dude.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Here's the door.
But then I went out with him again.
We all make mistakes.
It's fine.
Everybody
Anyway,
makes mistakes.
he was very
Everybody
convincing.
has those days. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody gets that way. If Melanie's listening, please tell me you're singing Hannah Montana with me on the other end.
But okay, so I saw this thing. If y'all don't follow Overheard on Bumble, you need to.
Oh my gosh, one of the best follows you can have on Instagram.
Hilarious.
It's
now
so
I will
fun.
basically people send them screenshots of their crazy Bumble conversation. So I will give you occasional content warning.
Yeah.
Occasional language warning. You've been warned. Most of the time, it is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So this I'm about to read you. This one is like one of my all-time favorite ones. And I'm going to read you this conversation because this is hey, what are you up to? This is about what we think is going on.
Yeah.
So it starts with the girl's side of the conversation. And she says, I just got dinner delivered and I put on a movie. And the guy's like, oh, what movie? And she says, Fantasy Island, which I don't know what movie that is. And he goes, how is it? And she's like, I feel like I've seen it already, but so far it's okay. And she's like, what are you up to tonight? So she asked the question, but he goes, drinks with buddies, you? And she was like, watching a movie with my cat. He goes, cool, what movie? She was like, the girl goes, really? But like that, when you're saying, hey, what are you up to? Like, it's that kind of conversation. I know she actually said it in this conversation, but like, that's how it goes. Like, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Like, so
yes.
In all seriousness, though, be kind the first time they ask.
Yeah,
it's
probably
you're gonna get asked
until it's a pattern. It's not a concern.
Yes. But if he does ask all the time, I think it's okay to be a little snarky.
Oh yeah.
Like, let them know you want them to put a little more effort into the conversation. Like, if some guy, when Tommy asked me this, like, I was finally like, nothing's changed since the last time you asked. Yeah. Like, ha. Yeah. Hoping didn't get the clip. Anyway. No. So that's what my sample answer is: be nice, answer the question at first. But if they ask all the time and don't really put, like, if that's just how you'll figure out real quick if that's just how they open a conversation and then you have a great conversation. Yeah. Or that's what they say, you text back and forth 2 or 3 times, and then a few hours later they ask the same thing, then you're going, okay, no, this is not going to work. Yeah.
So in that same vein, before we move on, can we talk about the infamous "what about you" response? Because I feel like a lot of time, like, in the Bumble thing, that's basically what he did. Is like, what are you up to? Drinks with buddies. You? Like, what about you? Yeah. And that's a very common response to get when you've asked a question. Yes. So how do you handle that?
I don't ask it.
Okay.
So 2 things. One, I think a lot of times we fall into this trap of, oh, guys don't ask questions. But then we get into this place too where it's like the only kind you answer in such a way, or you talk about things to where the only or the obvious only question back is, what about you? Oh, I like blah blah blah. What about you? So I try not to answer in such a way that they have to do that. But I also, one thing, this is just kind of a side thing, when guys don't ask, like, if you ask them a question and they answer, you're either upset because they didn't ask you a question, or you're upset because they just said, what about you?
Good point.
So I would get really frustrated by that. And I mean, this has been a couple years ago. I had this like mental shift of like, okay, this guy's talking to me because he's we're on a dating app. Obviously he's interested. He keeps talking to me. So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to assume the what about you. I'm going to assume he obviously wants to know the same about me, or we wouldn't be here having this conversation. And so I just would answer. I would just assume that they had asked that and kind of answer back with, oh, what I thought. And it completely changed my communication with a lot of guys. So
interesting.
That's something, I know I've talked about it on here before, but that's something that was really helpful for me just in like mentally. It's just something about knowing, I think it's the difference in the way men and women communicate and just realizing that. But if someone asks me a question and I answer it, every once in a while I do, but I will be honest, it's normally when I'm not super interested in a guy. Because I'm just like, I don't want to put, what about you? I don't want to put another thought into this.
Yeah.
We'll see how interested you are and where it goes kind of thing. But if they ask me a question and I answer it, a lot of times I'll say, answer, whatever it is. And then I'll say, obviously I want to know what you think too. But also that made me think about XYZ. So tell me about this as well.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, obviously I definitely want to know what you think about that, but here's something else too. And now I've already asked you another question.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I get around it is, that, or I'll say, oh, well, what about you? Do you like XYZ too? Or is this your fit? Like, I'll say, what about you? But then I follow it up with some other kind of like,
again, the
linked
specific
question
thing, yeah,
that's related, just so that I never leave a what about you by itself.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah. I think that's good.
Got to put a little effort in.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I mean, that's because again, you're sending nonverbals, whether you know it or realize it or like it or not. So if you're showing that you're going to put in minimal effort at the beginning, I'm assuming that that's your what?
You're assuming that's the most they have. Because this is the time you're trying to impress someone.
Yeah, the best, when people say, this is the best it's going to get at the beginning.
Yep.
And it's all downhill from here. If your best is like, this is very boring and unimpressive, honey, it ain't going to magically get better one day.
And I mean, there's room for like, you can't expect someone to read your mind. So you might have to kind of talk about how you communicate, but some things are just so basic, like you shouldn't have to explain them.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I agree. All right, moving on. Got
what's next?
Few more. Next question. Do you like blank? But the blank is something that's clearly mentioned in their profile.
Yeah.
This is such a pet peeve of mine.
This one really gets to Kristen.
So I think what I failed to ever come to grips with about online dating was that when females online date, we look at pictures and we read, I would say, at least 75% of the profile.
Well, yeah,
I would read all of it if it wasn't super long.
Yeah.
Now, if this guy's just, writing a novel and be like, okay, let me skim a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm reading.
And most guys don't write novels.
No. If a guy is looking through people, he's not reading a whole lot. And if you don't get his attention with your first picture, he's moving on. So the whole mentality, filter, everything is completely different. And so I'm basically getting mad at guys for not doing this the way I think they should, which I realized was on me. Yeah. But I'm putting information in my, especially this bothered me when it was on like Hinge or Bumble, because there's not that much information to filter through. If you don't read my Holy Harmony profile, you know what? That's fine. Okay. Yeah. But you got 3 prompts on Hinge. Yeah. It is not that much information
and
for you
only
to
have so many characters.
Through. Exactly. Yeah. So I get frustrated when you ask me something that is blatantly mentioned in the written portion of my profile. So a lot of times, which I don't know if this was a good idea. I mean, clearly it was a good idea because where I'm at now, but I just wouldn't respond. Like, I would be like, clearly you're not interested enough to really scroll. So I'm good. I'll keep moving. But that may not be everybody's mentality because they're not as easily irritated by this as me. So Bethany,
I'm halfway between.
What would you suggest when you get asked something like this?
Sometimes I will reply. It just depends. Like, if they ask me something that is obviously in my profile and then I go look at theirs, and I'm like, whoa, we would never, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you obviously don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
Like some of the things on people's
Bye-bye.
profiles, I'm like, oh my.
Yeah.
So if I go look and I'm like, oh, he literally saw a picture, sent me a message, has no idea what my profile says. I don't even reply. However, if I get a question like this and I go look at their profile and I'm like, oh wow, like I think like their profile would catch my eye, regardless, then I usually give them a pass on that first one.
Basically, she's gracious and I'm not, is what we're learning.
But to ask something like this, better read the profile. If you want to reach out to this person, they didn't just put all of that information there for their own amusement. So read their profile and then say, oh, I saw such and such on your profile and I love blank too. How'd you get into it? What's your favorite, thing? Like, go off of that. And yeah, go from there.
Yeah.
Don't just ask blindly. Oh, do you like such and such?
Yeah.
But yeah, because I think this one also too, like, people, this is gonna happen, and don't, unless it's just like you were talking about, blatantly obvious. If you're going along, you've been talking to someone for a little, and they ask a question that you're like, well, that's on my profile. Well, if you've been talking for a week, they're probably not stalking your profile. They're talking to you, so you don't remember everything, and so you kind of gauge it. But two, like, you want to be, I guess the distinction is you want to know whether or not they just missed something or they forgot, or whether they're just not a very attentive person in general. So this will translate past an online dating profile to, hey, have you ever done blah, blah, blah? And you're like, we just talked about this the other night for like 5 minutes. Like,
yeah.
Yes, we talked about this. If you find yourself saying that a lot or thinking that a lot, that's probably going to be an indicator that, hey, we have a problem here, not just, oh, they forgot something one time.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind if he does ask that.
Yeah. I think my initial response to not respond is only based on the first reach out. So because
Fair
in
enough.
my mind, you're looking at my profile, trying to come up with something to say to reach out to me. So if you're going to reach out hey, do you like the show Friends? I don't know. I know that's not a good question to start with, but and I literally put in one of the prompts of oh, if I have a free Friday night, I'm going to order pizza and watch Friends.
Yeah.
Then clearly you didn't read anything.
Yeah.
And if that's the best you can do to reach out, clearly that communicates you liked my picture.
Yeah. And
you asked me something. I realize this is not a good example, but bear with me. So that's when I get frustrated. If it's later down the road, the conversation, and you ask me something that's in my profile, we've been talking for a week, I wouldn't get frustrated.
Yeah.
But it's that initial message that if you can tell,
I completely agree
you
with
literally
that.
didn't pay attention at all. No, thank you.
Yep.
So yeah. And I mean, if you do if you get asked a question about something that's in your profile and it's on something like eHarmony where the answer's a little longer, just go copy and paste your answer.
Yeah. They obviously don't know.
He doesn't know. And it's less work on you. Don't make this harder on yourself.
Yeah.
Just copy and paste it. And at the end of the day, we talked about this question as more of a reminder for y'all not to do this.
Yes.
Because we can't really help keep you from this, but we can only encourage you to be attentive and not do this to other people. Yeah. So that was kind of why we wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, honestly, my sample answer would literally be to go copy and paste what was on my profile.
Well, there you go.
So
easy enough.
Yep.
All right. 2 more.
Okay. Lay it on me.
Number 8.
Okay.
Bethany, how was your day? I don't know why I get a therapist voice.
That was here. Lay down on the couch.
Your day? Yes.
Step into my office.
Yeah, let me get my legal pad. How was your day?
I think, I don't know. I feel like this one in general is one that you're going to be asking more down the road. Hey, I kind of know you now. How was your day? Because what you really want to ask, and what this would be the alternative way of asking this, is hey, how was your day? How did X go? I know you had that meeting. I know, you had lunch with so-and-so, or you were going to this small group or that, whatever thing you have, hey, how was your day? How did such and such go? I don't know, but just saying, oh, hey, how was your day? It's kind of the whole, hey, how are you?
Yeah. Same thing.
Here in the South, we don't How are you? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? The end.
You're not actually looking for the honest answer. It's like
not.
a greeting.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I guess that's the thing. Especially like really early on, I just wouldn't even ask this because you're wanting to get to know that person. This is for later on once you kind of know the person, you're just like checking in on their day. Because once you start asking this too early, that's what your conversation becomes, and you lose that getting to know each other. Does that make sense? And so
like I hate when people use this as the opener.
Agree.
Because I'm like, you don't know anything about me. So like I can't really, even if I did answer it, I'm like, oh, I had this really big meeting, and like you don't even know what
you don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you don't have any context.
Yeah. Well, and that so if I get that as an opener, but I still actually really want to talk to the person, I will say, oh, it's great. I'm at work, da 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 da, and then I completely bypass. I don't care about their day.
Yeah,
I don't mean that I don't care, but I do not ask them that back.
I'll say, not what you're looking for.
Oh, I'm at work. It's crazy busy on Tuesdays or whatever. How's your work day going? I saw that you're blah blah blah. How'd you get into that?
Yeah,
and just
keep going.
on going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say if you're going to ask this, try to ask something specific along with it. I think that's kind of the key, is to not have it just be this generic, no thought put into it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say if you get asked this question, since it is such a just, hey, how was your day? Oh, it's fine. How was yours? Like that's how it goes. Like that's the script.
Yeah.
Be honest. You don't have to like do that. If you had a horrible Monday, like you can say so. Oh, Monday was awful. You don't have to go into all this super detail, but like, oh, it's just been a rough day at work. I don't know. I think you have to give some sort of detail if you want the conversation to continue.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because otherwise it's, oh, how was your day? It was good. How was yours? Oh, it was good. And then you're going to end up getting bored.
Yeah.
Or not responding.
I'm going to watch a movie. Oh, okay, what movie?
Yeah.
5 minutes later.
Really?
Yes, exactly.
My cat is more stimulating a conversation than you.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
and that's not what, like,
no.
You're not on these. I have to get a texting buddy. Like, you're on here to meet somebody and get to know them and possibly like date them.
Yeah.
And you swapping pleasantries is not the way to do it. So. Anywho.
Agreed. Okay. Last one. I was like 2 more, but no, we only have 9.
1 more.
What is it?
All right. Has anyone ever told you that you have nice blank eyes, smile, teeth? Bethany gets a lot of compliments on her teeth. Well, she has great teeth. I'm not disagreeing.
I smile with my teeth showing, but yeah, I literally, guy, like, very first message. This is all he ever said to me because I did not respond. This message said, "You have nice teeth." No punctuation. I mean, not that would have had any effect on it. Does that mean like
it's going to be easy for them to identify my body when you kill me? Like,
right?
That's literally what that feels
like. Are you like assessing my dental records? Like, what in the world? Like, sometimes I just think, there's some things that you chalk up to, oh, it's just the difference between men and women. It's not how I would have said something, but it's fine.
Yeah.
There are other things that literally make you think, what sane person
opens with this
would say this?
Yeah.
So I mean, I and we put on here the alternative way of asking this. Don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to get into the psyche of the female mind a little, I think. So guys, if you're listening, this is for you. I might tell a guy he has a nice smile, like online. Other than that, I'm not saying anything about like his physical appearance probably online. It will have to be in person, at least after we FaceTimed.
Oh yeah.
At least. And here's why. Because what if you're online and you're like, oh my word, you're so cute. And you have such great eyes. And you're talking about how cute he is and this, that, and the other. Well, what if all of his pictures are like 12 years old?
Yeah.
And you meet in person and you're like, I'm not attracted to you at all for whatever reason. Well, you've committed yourself now to
giving him this false affirmation, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm really careful about that because I don't think that's what a relationship should be based on from the beginning. Like, it's just not, you can appreciate that they're cute. It's very kind of someone to say you have really nice eyes. I appreciate that. But I'm not going to get into all of that talking to a guy that I've just started talking to online and I've never seen in person. I'm just not going to.
No.
And I think, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I think if you can, as soon as you start directing the conversation in that way, where you're talking about physical stuff, you're like
even in a completely appropriate way. There's nothing inappropriate about that.
It's going to change the dynamic of your conversation. And like the beauty of like starting out talking this way is that you're just getting to know each other, you're getting to know about each other, you're getting to connect like emotionally and mentally and like not like too deeply, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's all like verbal. And so the physical aspect of the relationship, if it's there, is going to pick up as soon as you're in person.
Yeah.
But like going ahead and bringing that in to the stage where you're just trying to get to know the person, like you may end up not really getting to know them as much because you find like, oh, it's just fun for us to flirt and say all these nice things about it. And it's all these sweet nothings.
Yep.
And there's southern term for you, but
it's an unnecessary distraction a little bit at that point, or a disproportionate distraction. Like it's not. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
Okay, so now if you get asked this question, like if someone says, oh, has anyone ever told you have nice eyes, or you have a really pretty smile, or whatever, I try to assume the best. I mean, if it's really early on, like I'm like, really, that's the first thing. I don't know. I go back and forth. I'm like, well, he's being complimentary, and I'm like, that's kind. But then on the other hand, I'm like, but that's the first thing you want to say to me, even if it's very appropriate. Yeah. So I try to assume the best, and I say, oh, that's so kind, thank you. But I do not escalate it. I don't say, oh, you're really cute too, or anything. I just assume they're paying me a genuine compliment and address it, and then ask them something about themselves or from their profile or whatever.
Yeah.
You will know very quick if that was an accurate assumption.
Mm-hmm.
I had a time I got this guy blocked from whatever site it was. So he said something. This was on a Christian website, first of all, by the way.
Gosh.
This guy messages me, and he said, I think it was talking about like really nice eyes, but then I think he said something about like curves or something.
Oh gosh.
And sometimes I'm just kind of in a snarky mood, like whatever.
Like, buddy, you picked the wrong day.
It was one of those.
Yeah.
So I messaged him back, and I was like, oh, thanks. Like that was nice of you to say. Like, was there anything on my profile that that you liked or whatever?
Yeah.
And he goes, this is his response. He goes, don't you mean thank you, daddy? And I was like, oh, it's on. Oh no. You did not. Ugh. So I was
Give
like,
me a break.
I was like, no, that is not what I meant. And then we exchanged several messages because I was like, no, because first of all, I was a little bit like, okay, I can handle this. I can see through your nonsense, but there's people out here who won't.
Yeah.
So I messaged enough to get enough content. Then I sent it to reported it and sent like a screenshot to the whatever. And they're like, thank you. He has been removed from the site and like banned or whatever. Like,
yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So anyway, all that to say, you can tell real quick.
Yeah. What somebody's intentions are.
Yep.
If they were just trying to be nice or if they were trying to be inappropriate.
And so that's what I mean. If someone sends you a compliment about your eyes, your smile, whatever, be kind, assume the best at first. Mm-hmm. If they say that you have nice other things, if that's like the first message they send you, or
heck no.
I don't care if it is later on.
No. No.
Move on. The end.
Bye-bye.
Hard pass.
Door closed.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah.
X. Like I'm telling you, we need a soundboard because I need the Family Feud. Like,
yes, or like America's Got Talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
The buzzer.
Yes.
Oh goodness. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Yes. And that was our last question.
Oh wow, what a doozy to end on.
Yeah, for real, right? All right, guys. Well, we hope this has been helpful as you are. Yeah, it was really fun navigating your own conversations in the world of online dating. Hopefully you've gotten it. I feel like there are so many things you can, don't say potatoes, make a Bethany list in your phone. how to get somebody banned from a dating site. Like there's so many, a new true crime podcast. If you're into that, you figured that out. There was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on today.
But we hope this has been helpful. As we often like to say, if you did find this episode or any other episode you've listened to helpful, tell a friend about us. We love knowing that, or hearing that y'all have told your friends about us. We love hearing from people who've been referred by friends. It's always fun to see the community grow. And
I mean, if you're listening on iTunes, go leave us a rating and review. That's so helpful as far as just like the algorithms. I don't know exactly how it's helpful. All I know is when we get several, like they come in pretty quickly, we get bumped up and more people see the show. It correlates to a bump in listeners. So that's really helpful for us. We would love it if you guys would do that.
Yes, definitely. But we'll leave you with that, guys. We'll be back this Friday with a backstage pass, our first male listener question of the season. So stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle.